Poisonrana.
Hello.
Hello.
Braden Herrington here with Davie Portman for Poisonrana, the podcast. We are live here on Sunday, October 13th. I had to look at the dates. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving, the real Thanksgiving, more so the fake Thanksgiving, I guess. Hello, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, this Thanksgiving makes way more sense. Why do Christmas a month before Christmas? It baffles me.
I don't want
Christmas 2 months before Christmas.
I don't want to step on Americans' toes because I know how much they love their Thanksgiving, but realistically, ours is at a way better time. There's actually pumpkins. There's actually fall time. You guys just do Christmas you just do the same thing, 2 months back to back. It's kind of weird. So much prefer Thanksgiving at this time. Little peanuts, jazz music playing, some fall time, some spooky season, some pumpkins, the pie, all the good stuff. So happy Thanksgiving to
happy
all
Thanksgiving
out there. Americans, you take it to the whole other level though, with your Black Friday and all that stuff. But yes, hello, welcome to Poisonrana. It's Sunday, it's the Frog's Day, and we're gonna talk about some WrestleDream. We're gonna dream on and talk about wrestling as we always do. But how you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, a little tired. I'm trying to cram in these 4-hour pay-per-views between a night shift and a 2 o'clock start. Proves kind of difficult and doesn't quite make it as enjoyable as watching at night. Again, fuck Saturday pay-per-views. They suck. Bring back the Sundays for me. That would be a lot better. I'm selfish. I'd be thankful for that, but yes, no, I'm not.
I agree.
Bad. How are you?
I agree. We get slack for this. We get a lot of listeners, and people are like, "No, you guys are wrong." I like the
but getting a train from the arena at midnight is so hard. Grow up, get an Uber.
Wait, I don't understand how that. I mean, going to an arena on a Saturday would be even worse because it's just even more busier and everything. But no, a Saturday, you can do so much on a Saturday. A Saturday, some people do have jobs that work. We're in people like ourselves. Sometimes we work weekends, and if we're not, we usually like to enjoy having to not work our Saturdays. So usually, even if you're staying in bed all day or going out, seeing friends, having dinner, whatever, but instead it's no, there's wrestling. And then if you miss it, it's you want to watch it the next day later. Either A, you get spoiled, or B, you just don't watch it. So that's kind of like Collision. It's they put it on Saturdays. I can't remember the last time I stayed in and went, oh, better watch Collision tonight. And that's kind of what this pay-per-view felt like a little bit to me, but we'll get into that. But I'm sorry, the Saturday pay-per-views, and WWE doing them now too, and there's so many flip-flopping around of Sundays or Saturday where even wrestling fans who, granted, maybe we're not the smartest bunch, tend to always, is there a pay-per-view this Saturday or Sunday? There's lots of these wrestling fans.
Wrestling fans can't even find a channel. It's changed station. I guess I'm not watching. Oh, it's on a different day this week. I guess I'm never watching it.
Yeah. It'll be a lot easier once WWE's on Netflix because it'll just be what's it on? Netflix.
Yeah.
When's it on? Doesn't matter. Just watch it on Netflix. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The Sunday pay-per-views make a lot more sense. What else are you doing on a Sunday afternoon? I guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking today. I know it's Thanksgiving and I don't really celebrate being a Brit. But yeah, I'm just thinking today would be great. I maybe record a show or do some work during the day, cook myself a roast dinner and just chill and relax with the pay-per-view, get myself to bed and go to work in the morning. That sounds delightful. Whereas instead I'm power watching this thing to get in time for this review. But I know we're not everyone. A lot of people have regular Monday to Friday 9 to 5s. They're not necessarily reviewing a wrestling show immediately after it happens or whatever. But from my point of view, Sundays were just wrestling day for me. So
yeah, Sundays make a lot more sense. I think this Monday for us, the Monday is Thanksgiving, but I think for Americans it's Columbus Day or something. I could be wrong.
Who cares?
maybe we should celebrate the other Chris Columbus, the director, the producer,
director of Harry Potter.
Yeah, is that who that is? Yeah. He worked on Home Alone and stuff. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so I feel like that would have been great anyways, because I'm sure whether they have it off or not, like the Sunday just maybe because AEW pay-per-views run till like midnight, that it works better for them on the Saturday.
I mean, true. It is difficult with just transit from anywhere at midnight or post midnight.
Just don't run your damn shows this late. Like that's another way we could get around that. Like have a cap at 11, like most things. So then people could still go out or go home or whatever and still make it home. But yeah. So happy Thanksgiving. Happy Chris Columbus Day, if it is that in fact for you.
It's going to have to be a tight show today because you were going off to celebrate Thanksgiving with your family. But let's get the plugs out the way super duper quick. We did just drop on this very free feed on Friday a brand new episode of Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, where the Ambrose of Dickie Bird, Martin Bushby, and Brandon from New Jersey were joined by Mr. Wei Ting, the cowboy himself, to talk all about Dean Ambrose on Total Divas. You can find the show on this YouTube channel as well as in our podcast feed. But I haven't had time to get around to listening to this one yet. But this I'm very much looking forward to, and is probably going to enjoy it with my walk once we finish the show today.
Yes, I got to listen to. I know Wei Ting is always in his bread and butter when talking about Total Divas, and I did say the other day on a show that I bet you they'd have a lot of fun discussing the episode, if my memory serves correctly, here in Toronto, in our city, of when Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, the hat of Renee gets stolen or something like that. So, oh boy, makes for some great reality TV and even better podcast banter. Because looking back, I don't have fond memories of Total Divas. I know it did a lot for bringing in like women's wrestling fans and everything. Like it was a success, and I won't deny that. I think that was such a smart move and everything. But watching it then, it was kind of cringe, but I was like, I'm along for the ride. Just hearing them and watching clips back about Total Divas, I'm like, man, that sucked. The best thing we got out of that was any of the Dean Ambrose, Daniel Bryan, or John Cena just being a dick, I guess was the highlight of that show. Because like reality TV is still so popular, right? Like we're wrestling fans, but we're in the minority. Like way more people watch, Love is Blind and The Bachelor and all that kind of stuff. There's way more people that watch those kinds of shows than pro wrestling. So maybe we're the weirdos. But yeah, anyways, that made for a great show. Way obviously with Brandon from New Jersey having some interesting conversations that I won't repeat. Dickie Bird, Martin Bushby, the Ambrose are in full effect. I think this was my favorite episode thus far. So please go check that show out if you haven't listened already.
We also have a bunch of shows on our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Poisonrana. We released 2 shows this week. An episode of Was Next, looking at the April 23rd, 2014 edition of NXT, featuring, for the first time ever, Sami Zayn teaming up with the Usos.
Yes, very Usi episode, a retro NXT review. We go through NXT from the beginning, and it just so happens we're watching this episode, and it's got the Usos teaming with Sami Zayn, and they seem to already, they didn't have quite the handshake down, but they seemed pretty Usi and seemed like dogs. So this was a great episode to go back and watch. Plus Sasha teaming with Charlotte to take on Paige and Emma, and a lot more. Tyson Kidd making his like NXT debut, which we're going to then jump into his whole NXT run. So yeah, that was a great episode. But then it is spooky season, Davie. So we had to keep it spooky with the Blair Witch Project review that I think a lot of people are interested in. I think this was a big movie 25 years ago. So we're celebrating the anniversary. Just a few months ago, it turned 25.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this review. I'm partly tempted, just mainly out of curiosity, to later today put on the sequel just to see what it's all about. Yeah,
I'm tempted. I feel like it won't live up to any of the hype, I guess. But yeah,
I don't think there was any hype for the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think there was. I think there was a lot of hype for the original movie, which is what a lot of our review is. But does it hold up is a big question. And yeah, I find out that maybe I'm not a big fan of the Blair Witch Project, but also at the same time, can't knock the creativity. So that was a great podcast, especially for you horror fans, because we dive into that one, and it's fun talking about ghost stories and witches and how they went viral before things went viral. So good chat as well.
We can also reveal the winner of the poll for what Halloween Havoc will be reviewing this year. And it's going to be 1995. Hulk Hogan versus the Giant in a monster truck sumo match.
Oh, God.
We have Ric Flair and Sting versus Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman. Randy Savage versus Lex Luger. Johnny B. Bad versus Diamond Dallas Page for the WCW Television Championship. This sounds absolutely horrendous, and I can't wait to chat all about it.
I didn't vote, so I didn't want to vote in my own tadpole, so I didn't, but now I wish I kind of did. Last night after WrestleDream, your new roommate, our friend Graham, he was showing me his, I don't know, IPTV thing, and he goes to WWE like on-demand channel 24/7 thing, and that monster truck match is on. So we kind of watched it last night, and we were just like, oh my God, this is so bad, so good. So that's going to make for a pretty funny review as well, talking about Halloween Havoc 1995. It's crazy because we were watching that, and I'm like, why is Hogan like, this is pre like Bash at the Beach, right? But
yes,
yet he's wearing like NWO gear essentially. It was kind of like foreshadowing a little bit. It was like they were calling him Dark Hogan or something like that. It sucked. Really sucked.
Yeah,
you're
so
gonna
that's
love it.
Coming out. We also have our review, the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is going to be coming out later this month, as well as a whole load of other spooky things.
Yes, lots of podcasts. Poisonrana in your podcast app, in your social media apps. Give us a search, give us a little follow there, and patreon.com/Poisonrana. $5 to become a friend. You get all those shows mentioned, but so many shows, all the retro like scary movie reviews that we've done over the years, all the wrestling reviews, pay-per-view reviews, best matches ever, and so forth. So definitely worth it. $5. We've never raised our price. It means pennies per podcast there. And we're small-time independent podcasters, and we like making content for you. And we appreciate all the love and support and all the messages we get. And anyone rocking our merch as well as chop-tees.com/Poisonrana. There's not only hats like the one I'm wearing, or the hoodies, or the t-shirts, but there's also limited edition varsity jackets that Dickie Bird has been showing us some behind the scenes of. They just look awesome. So love all the support and love that we're getting out there in this Poisonrana / post wrestling community, because it's fun. It's great. And just a little a reminder or heads up here before we jump into some wrestling. If you are in the New York area and you are thinking of going to Full Gear, we're not going to do a live event or anything, but we will be around and probably, hanging at a bar near the venue. So let us know if you're reaching. But also in the Toronto area, we do a lot of watch parties for wrestling. And if you've listened to us, you know that we love Halloween. We love spooky season so much. In fact, too much. So for the first time ever, we're doing a Halloween watch party on Devil's Night, but we're turning it into Loomis Night, October 30th. So come to Gabby's. It's $10 to get a ticket. Also gets you a free drink. So there you go. The drink is already covered with the admission.
The drink itself is worth more than $10. So exactly. I see this practically as free, because you're paying $10 to guarantee your entry. You'll get a free drink. And on top of that, half of the proceeds are going to a charity.
So we want everyone to dress up like Halloween, the movie series characters. I mean, any Halloween costume is allowed and welcomed, but we prefer if people dress like Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis. So please come dressed in your Halloween costumes. We're going to play Halloween 1, and then we're going to go down the street just to another bar at Casa Mezcal, and then we're going to watch Halloween 2. So we're going to be watching Halloween movies, drinking, partying, and yes, all the proceeds. We're going to split that in half and donate to sick kids here in Toronto. So we're just doing it to have a lot of fun. So any Halloween fans, spooky fans, or just Toronto area listeners, this is another opportunity to just come out and have a Halloween party with us and have a good time, and for a good cause. And free.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really fun night, and we'd love as many of you to come along as possible.
We have to. I'm getting the mask today. I'm going to my mom's for Thanksgiving, and I know that my stepdad's got a pretty good Michael Myers mask somewhere, so I got to dig that out of the crates, because we're going to force.
I'm working on this right now. Yeah.
What are you doing? What is that?
My goatee.
Oh, you're working on your goatee. I was like, sorry, what are you doing right now?
Everyone else does Movember. I just grow a beard all of October for
They're
whatever
like,
character I'm going to be playing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm in the growing that Loomis goatee. Incredible.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to have the gathering of the most Loomis ever, possibly. We're gonna try to get in some sort
Guinness World Record.
Guinness World Record. Anyone out there who can help us achieve this, get some spotlight on Loomis Night, will be greatly appreciated because we're ridiculous and silly. But again, for a good cause. So we're having fun, and it's all in good fun. So I'm really excited for this. We're just gonna watch Halloween and have a good time as always. So looking forward to that. Toronto people, again, check us out, poisonrana.ca for links for everything that we do over there. But let's talk about some wrestling, because obviously we talked about NXT, which seems to be buzzing again with the move to the CW network, and kind of joking earlier, like, oh, wrestling fans don't even know what channel to watch. To be fair, we're in Canada, so soon Netflix, it'll be easy. But I did see some people having trouble trying to find what CW networks and things like that. And apparently in Canada, the airings are kind of all up in the air with the broadcasting rights kind of switching over soon and stuff like that. But if there's a show or movie that you're desperately looking to watch, you're going to find a way to watch no matter what. So,
I mean, I think we're like, it's been a while since the ratings have come out for this week's Dynamite, but I think we should maybe touch on it quickly before going into the pay-per-view. And obviously Dynamite was on a Tuesday this week. Its lowest rating of all time in the kind of 300,000s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt, I don't know, this wasn't hit over the head at all. You know, I think our friend Graham, who was like, I had no idea it was on Tuesday this week. And I feel in the past they've been a bit more, remember Tuesday, or we're on TNT next week, not TBS. TNT, remember that's TNT. Like they do it a lot, and I know we've made fun of it when WWE do it, like Sci-Fi next week, Sci-Fi Network, it's Sci-Fi SmackDown, it's Sci-Fi Saturdays, whatever. Like they really hit you over the head with it to make sure you don't miss out. And I just thought this whole Go Home show this week, it deserved that rating. I thought it sucked. I thought it was such a defeatist attitude show. And in my opinion, and we've seen this with Rampage, you know, Rampage started off hot and then, oh, it's Friday night, it's difficult, it's late, whatever, and just kind of laid down and made it a C show. Collision, we've seen the same. It's a tough night, it's Saturday night, and like, it started off hot again, and then after time, it was, well, people aren't watching, whatever. We'll just throw any old shit on there. And I feel like, personally, I think it's completely the wrong attitude. Like, it should be like, oh, man, I'm going out tonight. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss Collision, but I have to get up to make sure I watch that because that match sounds awesome. I had no idea what was going into this Dynamite. I came out of it wishing I didn't watch it. It was just so lazy. And I feel you should be putting on a show like, hey, if you miss this show, that is your fault because we've told you where to watch it. We've told you what's coming up, and we put on a hell of a good show. And I just felt it was, we're up against NXT and baseball or whatever else was going on, whatever. And I thought it sucked. I thought it absolutely stunk.
I can't even remember what happened on it.
Nope.
I mean, like, you know, almost a week has gone by, but I remember being like, oh, that wasn't necessarily the great go home edition. I mean, this pay-per-view that we're going to talk about from last night, I feel like was the least hyped pay-per-view in possibly their 5-year plus existence.
And this episode of Dynamite should, I think the issues were you have this stretch of shows, like you go, it's like Blood and Guts, All In, All Out, Grand Slam, 5-year anniversary, and you've got all these big marquee shows in the space of 2 months that you're trying to build all these feuds. Ended up leaving essentially 2 weeks to build this show, and then this week they didn't even fucking bother. So I think when we're going to go through the pay-per-view, which I enjoyed, I thought, as always, like, they've got some of the best wrestlers in the world facing each other. It's a good show.
For sure.
But I thought so many of the matches just felt unearned and just undercooked. You know, if it just had, you know, a solid 4 weeks of build, like, the feud could have been established a bit more, and I could go in with a bit more excitement about the match rather than watching the match feeling a bit cold and then halfway through being, okay, this is starting to pick up a little. And I think if you're moving from, you know, it used to just be 4 pay-per-views a year, now it's more like 10 or whatever, you maybe need to chill on some of these special dynamites a bit more and use your TV time to solidly build these feuds a lot more.
Yeah, I think you know, they're still the show I watch. They're still the show that even if I am out Wednesday night or working Wednesday night or whatever, or we have something to do Wednesday night, I still make time to watch it. And that's still the only show that I'm like, whatever. But like last week, I watched it probably Wednesday morning when I was awake. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty kind of lame episode for not really getting me that hyped for the pay-per-view, which doesn't on paper look like their most, you know, fanciest looking card. So I thought it was kind of a forgettable episode, and they're hyping up like this is the last ever Dynamite that Danielson could potentially be on. And it felt like one of the lowest like crowd attended shows that they've put on. And then
with a house show main event.
Yeah, with a house show main event with the tag team match with Danielson doing the yes thing while Yuta's just laying down like, yo, what the fuck, bro? Which we'll get into, probably was done on purpose, but just felt like house show attendance, and then turns into the worst rated episode, worst watched, you know, lowest rated episode, whatever. And like, if you listen, ratings usually don't really like matter. It sucks that they moved it. Matter to me, I mean, like as just a fan, but when they move it to Tuesday, it's like they didn't necessarily hit you over the head with it so much that I'm like, oh yeah, there is one. Like the week before, I'm like, oh okay, yeah, they're gonna be on Tuesday, and then, you know, we're pretty busy on Tuesdays when we watch NXT. So even us, we're like, oh, we'll just watch it like later or the next day or whatever. And I just felt like not only was it like, oh, it was on a Tuesday, so everyone watched it after NXT. It was also a bad episode. So that just like, maybe they didn't want to put good stuff on it because they knew they were going to get slaughtered by NXT. But yeah, pretty low.
What a just shitty attitude to have. Yeah. Just be like, oh, everyone's going to be watching better things on TV tonight than us, so let's just completely phone it in. It's such a bad attitude to have, and it teaches me to be like, next time they're head to head, maybe I'm in no rush to watch this show. Maybe I'll just pick NXT. Whereas I think there've been times in the past when they've gone head to head where we've gone, I really want to watch Dynamite tonight because I don't want to miss that match and I don't want to be spoiled on that. Whereas there was nothing from this show.
It was one bad show. Like I try to watch like Raw or SmackDown, and I'm like, I don't know how people, even with the 2 hour, I'm like, I don't know how people, I'm so like removed as a fan that there's like no going back. And AEW could be having that problem. 5 years ago, they were the cool, shiny new toy. And once you had that stink, people are going to know you stinky. And like, they might not go back. And that could be an issue why people are like, actually, every time I tune in, it's the Butcher and the Blade or this and that. And you know what? I'm kind of over that because CM Punk's now in WWE and the big guns are going and they're popular now. And The Rock shows up. It's like, I understand that completely because you send a lot of people away by doing these things, like you just said, the head to head, right? Like normally I'd watch the show if a show is actually on a Tuesday night, I'd still watch the show that's always that show and then watch the other one. It was kind of the same way when they used to go head to head a lot more. But
I think we're both the same where like ratings don't really mean much to us, and especially now with the TV deal, they're showing. It's not in risk of cancellation or anything like that, but it just shows like the overall like attitude towards the show. And a show is way more enjoyable to watch when the crowd is hot and there's, you're going to like booming full arena venues watching this thing and that kind of thing. And there's something completely missing, which is causing popularity decline. And I think something, okay, it's not your cup of tea, but WWE focusing on, long-term storytelling, characters actually that kind of makes sense. Why they're turning face, why they're turning heel, why they have a beef with a certain person. Whereas AEW's like, hey, by the way, Chris Statlander's a babyface now, and she's a babyface now because she told us on Collision that she's now a babyface. Okay, sorry, you were having a blood feud with Willow, the most likable person in this company, 2 weeks ago, and now you're just like, no, I'm good now, by the way. That's a new story. And it's stuff like that makes us go like, wait, did I miss something? Oh no, that's just a lack of care. And I think that is so much of this build to this pay-per-view felt like that to me.
This wasn't the best built pay-per-view. This felt like, like everybody we know that is a wrestling fan is like, oh yeah, this is just feels like a thrown together, like, oh, we have a pay-per-view here just because we do now kind of thing. That was like, oh, okay. It's a lot to ask, I think, considering like they were known for having one every once in a while, where now it feels like every month there is a pay-per-view, which hey, the more the better for some people, right? They're like, hey, like for me, it's like, hey, as long as I get a lot of good wrestling, but I'm not tuning into your Collision. So I didn't know Chris Statlander said that, because you've made me not tune into this show, because every time I've tuned into it, I've not really wanted to come back. And that's how I just like, same with Raw. It's like, if I don't like this every time I watch it, I'm not going to watch it anymore. Collision, I can't remember the last time I've tuned in. Even I've checked out, a match here or there, because Beast Mortos is just the best. But like, other than that, like, I haven't watched a full episode front to back, like possibly maybe even ever, to be honest. So like, Rampage is gone. I think with this TV deal, whatever this Shockwave is, it would be good to have like a Velocity or a Sunday Night Heat more than like a secondary show or a third show, where you just show me clips of stuff. So for the people who didn't see this, or the kids who didn't watch Dynamite, that can draw them in somehow else with the video packages and this and that. But to add more wrestling, to try to push Ring of Honor to whatever the hell it is, like more is not the answer for AEW. They're not WWE. So even if they're, getting TV deals, this and that, which is awesome for them, which is great. Again, like as a fan, I still love this show. I'm not mad at them because they had a stinker of a Dynamite last week. Like, we'll move on, but they do need to have people showing up to shows. They do need people watching these shows, and they've had issues with that. And as a fan watching, you're like, hey, wouldn't it be better if you guys actually like got better again? Like, restore the feeling, bruv. Like, wouldn't it be better just as a fan to be more like, wow, this is so good because everyone else is loving it too, right? So I do kind of hope things pick up. And then I see things about the Jimmy Jacobs stuff, and there's like back and forth with people online saying, oh, he was responsible for XYZ in AEW. It's like, we don't know firsthand, at least yet, of what he did do and what he didn't do. But if there is by chance he was behind some of the like not so great stuff, then let's move on and get some people working on stories, working on booking more so than just for next week, and create stories. And like you said, like, long-term booking can go a long way and get people interested in watching. And stories is something they do really well when they do really well, but they also do a lot of really bad ones. And I think they could make you can put any Ospreay dream match on a pay-per-view, but you need to give us a reason why it matters. And I think they definitely still struggle at that. Like, they go, hey, here's all these dream matches and good wrestling, but you need a reason, like, to be a bit more invested into these characters. Because then on the flip side, look at WWE. I don't really care about the match between Liv Morgan versus Rhea and the Dom storylines, but the story is so silly and ridiculous that, like, I'm caring more about the segments and the angles than the matches, and it's vice versa with WWE and AEW. But yeah, this was the least hyped pay-per-view, I think, in their entire existence. And I'd still say it was a good show, though.
Yeah. Shall we go through it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Started with Jay White taking on Hangman Adam Page. Jay White winning after a counter from the buckshot lariat into the Blade Runner.
Yeah.
For me, this was one of those ones. I think I enjoyed the match, but just dynamically it felt weird. And Jay White's one of these people that he's come out and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm a babyface now, and now you're all cheering me." And I'm like, "Oh, am I? Okay, I guess so." And Hangman, who is obviously a clear heel these days, but the character has been so compelling that we kind of like him as well. So I felt I was watching this match and just thought, yeah, this would make more sense to me if the roles were reversed. But that being said, like technically, what I was watching, I thought the wrestling was very good, and I think this is something that you need to do. We need to freshen up the top of division, the main event scene, and getting a Jay White in there. And I know he's a little polarizing. He doesn't fully connect with me, but I do think he's a good wrestler, and I do think he's a good promo. And I saw this made almost like, the first Swerve and Hangman match, where it's like, right, we need to elevate Swerve. And I got the sense with this with Jay White here. And I don't think the loss hurts Hangman, because it just turns him more into this psycho who's, wide bugging out eyes because he's losing, and what crazy shit is he going to do next?
I like that about that. I like the fact that it's like, he's still one of my favorites to watch. And Hangman, I was a little like, oh, you lost to Jay White there, but this does help Jay White. I do think he's someone that they could, potentially still have a star with him. Again, you said like some people don't like him, some people really don't like him, but some people do. And this match was pretty good opener. It was pretty fun. Jay White showing us that he doesn't need to wrestle for a whole hour to have a good match. Like he can have a good match in just 20 minutes or so. But I love the finish. And then Hangman losing is just like even more angry. But it was weird, because it's like, wait, I'm supposed to cheer Jay White? And then Hangman comes out and he's literally flipping off the crowd. And I'm like, okay, so I'm really supposed to cheer for Jay White here. But it's Jay White. So I'm like, that's weird. So
just Jay White is such a natural heel. And even his babyface promo on Tuesday felt somewhat heelish, because he's like, you guys always used to boo me and now you love me. And I'm like, oh, you're saying that as a good guy? You're not saying it. It almost sounded like, you hypocrites. Like, and weird. Are we cheering you? I guess we are.
But we're going deeper into the craziness of, Magnum TA Hangman here, where he's just like even more wild, and his hair is getting crazier and his eyes more open. So wherever this leads, I'm not too sure, but I'm still intrigued, because Hangman could easily be positioned back into the main event slot, but instead he's kind of chilling and doing other stuff. But I liked the match. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What would you do? Do you see any rematch of this, or do you see Jay White moving on to other stuff?
Yeah, I kind of do see a rematch. Like maybe Hangman's like, oh, you like, actually, I'm mad at you. Like maybe his gimmick now is like, what was it? Anxious millennial cowboy. Now it's like deranged psychopath. That's what he is, because now he's just not going to let things go. And he's going to want to get revenge on this guy just because. So hopefully they do have another match where it like they amp it up a little bit.
We then had Mariah May taking on Willow Nightingale for the AEW Women's World Championship. Mariah May going over in 10 minutes, 50 seconds. This one, I somewhat forgive them for the thrown together nature, because they were building to Britt Baker and Mariah May, and then an undisclosed illness or whatever with Britt Baker. Or is it, didn't want to lose another match since my return? Who knows? But we got this match, and I actually kind of got into this. I think it's a
better match than what we would have got.
Yeah, I really like the closing stretch with like Mariah's finish going into Storm Zero. I think Willow is just awesome. I was kind of watching this and sort of doing some dream matches of, oh man, I'd love to see Willow and Charlotte Flair one day or something like that. Like she just seems the most complete in the whole division, I think. And I thought this was a good outing for Mariah May as well. So despite being a bit thrown together, and I thought they got the crowd on board by the end. I don't think I didn't want to see Willow win this because I think she should have a bigger chase for when she finally wins that title, and it should be on a bigger stage and feel like a bigger moment. But I pretty enjoyed this match.
Yeah, this is a match that Mariah May needed to have. Her defenses and TV has kind of been rinse repeat, and you kind of didn't think she necessarily had a true threat to someone taking it. Willow is one of the best homegrown AEW stars for me. I think I'm still buzzing after, was it the Statlander match from the last pay-per-view where they had the street fight, and like that was possibly like women's match of the year for me. And I think this one was a bit of a sleeper hit for me too, because I know Willow's good, and I think Mariah May's pretty good too, but we knew Mariah was not losing, but there was times you're like, and I totally agree with you. We need a way bigger moment for Willow. If not the word, when Willow wins the women's championship here in AEW, like it'll be some big moment and story, hopefully going into it, because I do think she is one of the most exciting to watch and does not have a bad match with anyone. So I joked that saying Mariah versus Willow, the match we got here would have been better than anything we would have got with Baker and Mariah. And I think that's true. Like every time I watch Willow, her matches are entertaining, exciting, and so good. And she's got dimensions to her character now that almost Bailey right? Like she's always kind of been like the happy, smiley, the fun music. And then the last pay-per-view, she's like, no, my friend turned on me. I have to.
But less of a pushover. Like it was actually one of my favorite things of Dynamite this week, where Mariah May's talking and she just comes out of nowhere and pounces her out the screen.
I think she's great. I can't wait for the Willow World AEW Women's title run, because that is definitely something I'm into. So you're joking like, oh, imagine seeing her in WWE. Like one day, like she could be one of the best, women's wrestlers going. As far as right now, I think she's one of the best right now. So this was a bit of a like, oh, actually, that was pretty good with Willow. And I don't know why we thought that, because again, Mariah and Willow are both really good. And
Mariah's someone who's still like I feel she's as good as her opponent a lot of the time. Like I really like in match with Tony. Like I've seen some matches where I think she's been really good, and then there's some other ones that haven't quite clicked, and because of that, I think the Britt match could have been a little like and Britt definitely needs a good match after the Mercedes one. So this was definitely better for it, and Mariah continuing to improve
for sure.
We then had Jack Perry defeating Katsuyori Shibata for the AEW TNT Championship in 9 minutes 20.
I didn't think this was a bad match. I thought this was pretty fun, actually. And maybe the Shibata is weird for me in AEW. It's like, man, you're Shibata. You're fucking great. But then he's doing the voice thing with his phone, and they're making him a bit like too silly. Whereas here, the like sit down spot where Jack is kicking him and he's no selling it, and then like unleashes and like attacks him, was like, yeah, I this is what I want to see from you. I don't necessarily like you being like trying to be funny in the phone stuff, but I did like get into certain parts of this match. Like I'm not a Jack Perry hater by any means at all, but it was fine. It wasn't necessarily like the match of the show or anything. But I do have a bigger question, and that's going back to something a bit more interesting than the match itself, was the promo that was setting this match up on Tuesday night, I guess it was. Did you happen to catch what Jack Perry said about Shibata?
He's got a big old dick.
He's like, yeah, I love Shibata. He's a great wrestler. And he's got a turkey leg in his shorts. I'm like, excuse me? And I like had to rewind it. Like, okay, all right. First of all, nice. But second of all, like that's how you're describing your opponent that you're going to wrestle for your title on the pay-per-view. You're saying that he's got a big old dick in his pants. I'm like, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I could have done without this match on the show. It wasn't bad, but also it again didn't feel earned. Like there was no way Shibata was winning this thing. I'm personally just bored to death of the no, hit me harder, the chop exchanges, the elbows to the it's so like I've been done with it for a couple of years now. It was refreshing to see it for the first time really in North America, you know, when New Japan was coming over, and you don't get that kind of thing in WWE. But now I find it so boring, and I'm like, just try and win the fucking match, man.
I agree. Like this one though, he was doing the running kicks and stuff like that, like the sit down stuff where it's usually someone versus Ishii and they do that spot, and it's like, come on, like you're not even like actually hitting them. I think this was like a collision match that they were
it was.
And we're going to slide this in here and trick you and think trick you into paying for it, essentially, when it's like, I don't even know if I'd watched that on Collision, but it was fine. And I don't hate Jack Perry or Shibata, so it was. And
I just feel whatever reason, obviously New Japan aren't using Shibata, I guess concerns with his health and whatever. It's very bizarre, but yeah, he'd really help New Japan being in the top mix there rather than
he could be their champion right now.
Yeah.
Instead of being on his phone, he could be their champion and maybe like, I don't know, help them, but they probably don't want to risk it.
We then had Daniel Garcia come out to confront Jack Perry, who was taking out Shibata at the end of the match. It seems like that's the route Daniel Garcia is going, which I like that feud. That seems like something we can actually build and have a decent thing, and could be the crowning moment for Garcia. Leading on to the return of MJF, who comes out sporting his Adam Sandler's son's hair, I guess, for the
Happy Gilmore 2, as the internet has found some footage that some fans took. Good for him. Like big Happy Gilmore fan. And whenever they make sequels to old comedies, it usually isn't very good, but it's still what like the fans want. So I think it's kind of a big, it's a big play for him to be. He did such a good job. I loved him in the Iron Claw. I mean, he was just fantastic in it. So
best Lance Von Erich.
Yeah, ever. I feel like it was like, wow, this guy has the future in acting. I do actually think he does have a pretty big future in acting, because like I know there's the MJF haters right now. I still love this guy because he gets a huge pop when he comes out, and then he grabs the mic and people are kind of booing. It's kind of quieted down, and then he says one or two things, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what did he just say? Because the crowd were just like completely booing him again, probably some sports reference. And then he's shitting on Garcia, and then he's like, oh, by the way, like that's a real big star reaction there, by the way. I was like, this guy is so cunty, and I'm still such a fan. But then his return was upstaged just a little bit by the return of Adam Cole, baby. Which is great. He got a great reaction. I think everyone's missed this guy. I think he's one of the more likable wrestling people. And
I had my heart in my mouth, though, him running down the ramp. I'm like, be fucking careful, man.
I saw a great meme the other day where it's like when girls get a time machine and it's like, wow, hi, grandma, I'm your granddaughter from the future. And when guys get a time machine and it's, hey, Adam Cole, don't jump off that ramp at Grand Slam. Please, please just don't do that. And I'm scared for this guy. I feel like I'm not someone to like criticize or judge how someone looks, but MJF returns here looking like an absolute beast, like trying to murder Daniel Garcia. And then Adam Cole comes out and I'm like, you kind of look the exact same way you did. And I know you've been off with injury, but you don't come back necessarily looking like menacing or a wrestler or anything. And again, don't get me wrong. I love Adam Cole, but I don't know. Am I off there? Am I just an asshole?
Especially with leg, ankle, foot injuries. It's so hard to be doing cardio when you're off.
Sure.
And because most of your cardio involves running and all that kind of rowing and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it's I know what you mean. I laughed at the retconning we had from commentary, which was, last time Adam Cole was in a ring, he injured himself saving MJF. I'm like, no, last time he was in a ring, he just got punked out by MJF, who dropped him with a brainbuster. But it makes way more sense to bring him back. Just bring him back as a babyface. Like, forget all of the devil stuff. Like, just I think it's something where I'm like, okay, I just accept it. This way round works a lot more. I hope we don't really see an extended feud. I think it should just be the one match to finish this story. But he's someone who, and with a heel champion now at the top, he could totally be a fresher match for Mox down the line, because that's not really real combination we've seen much of before.
I'm such a big fan of this guy, and I'm so happy that he's back. Hopefully this means he's back to wrestle again. But I was a little scared watching him run down the ramp. I'm like, oh my God, is this how it's going to be now, watching him wrestle? Like, am I going to be scared for this? Every time we would see Danielson, ever since coming back from his neck injury or whatever, it's like, oh my God, he's put that into the storyline of his wrestling. So I wonder, hopefully the guy's going to be good. And I hopefully he comes back the way he was before, because he is, he's a truly talented wrestler. And I think Full Gear, we do Adam Cole, MJF, and kind of get that over, one and done, and then move on. But I'm down with that. I'm really happy to see him back on screen and everything. So it was nice. And he got a crazy reaction. Like, if you forgot about him for a second, you didn't after that. Like, anytime the Adam Cole Baby, the song hits or whatever, the crowd was there for him.
We then had Konosuke Takeshita winning the AEW International Championship in a 3-way against Will Ospreay and Ricochet.
Yeah, I mean, going into this pay-per-view, I think I was the least hyped going into an AEW show, but it had this match on the card, on paper, which I just knew would bang. We all knew these three would just deliver. Absolutely. And that's definitely what we got. Another match of the year contender, if you will, because Takeshita Ospreay have this crazy chemistry that we saw firsthand in North Carolina at Revolution in one of the matches of the year again. And then we know Ricochet and Ospreay have the story and everything. So then, kind of having the three of them in this 3-way dance triple threat was just wrestling is an art. And I know there's some people that don't like the flippy stuff and all that, but this was so awesome. This is one of the matches, as soon as it ends, you're like, I kind of want to watch that again, but I have to watch the rest of the pay-per-view. I haven't watched it twice yet, but I probably will watch it a second time this week. Like, some of the crazy spots in there were just so, how do you come up with that? How do you come up with some of these things that you're doing? Because at one point Ospreay was backflipping off of Takeshita. It looked like he was flying at one, they're doing all these crazy moves and back and forths that some people, I can't even explain what I had witnessed, let alone think of how they got away with doing it actually physically there. So this was an all-timer triple threat match. And it's funny because as watching it, the first few moments going in, I know Ospreay always talks about one of his favorite matches ever is Daniels versus Joe versus Styles from TNA, which we've talked about for sure. And first few seconds of this match, I turned to my friends watching. I'm like, oh, I bet you they're going to do some spots from that match. And right away they started doing callbacks to that. And they both beat up Takeshita, the Daniels and Styles beat up Joe, or the other way around and everything. But I thought this was great. Easily the match of the night on this show. Easily a match of the year contender. But then it did have the Don Callis finish that we're so accustomed to getting to. But I still kind of liked it because I think Takeshita is just my favorite wrestler to watch this year. And I'm so happy that he's finally got some gold, some flowers. And if Don Callis is the way to get this guy positioned as a champion, then I'm for it. So this was the highlight of the pay-per-view for me, highlight of the show. And Takeshita is better than anyone other favorite wrestler because he's fucking great. I love this guy so much, and I'm so happy for him. And this spirals off into other stuff with Fletcher and everything like that as well. So this was pretty well done.
Yeah, I love the match. The Callis stuff did take it down a peg for me. I find the screwdriver such a fucking stupid.
He's still using the screwdriver. I don't even remember why we're using the screwdriver.
It makes no sense to me because for the screwdriver to actually work as a weapon, you need to drive it through their skull into their brain, which is just ridiculous. You know, that's like, there's weapons that I can be like, okay, yeah, you're knocking them out. The idea of a screwdriver, it looks like a weapon from The Walking Dead, you know, just stabbing zombies in the head. It's so stupid. And I have no interest in a Kyle Fletcher feud, to be honest. Like, it's just, we already have a Will Ospreay, and he's great. I don't need a second one with shitty tattoos and bad fashion sense.
I like the fact that we're getting that match. That guy, this kid is pretty talented. I think he's really good. He does kind of give me MGK vibes with that hair, and
he looks like shit.
But I think he's a good wrestler.
Apart from that, yeah, I love the match until the end and kind of groaned a little bit with the finish. I would like moving forward, because we did have the tease for Okada Takeshita that was kind of then put on hold. I think this should be your A block and B block winners, and unify, make it the Intercontinental Championship. You know, put these two belts together, the Continental Classic. This should be your 2 block winners going forward in the final, and I think that would be a good tournament. And I think maybe that's something you could have. You know, Jay White be a contender, get to the finals too. A block final too as well. But I think Okada Takeshita at World's End to unify these titles would be a great idea.
Yeah. Get rid of one, like these. There's too many of these titles. Like, everyone seems to be a champion in this company. It's like, that doesn't help. It just makes all the other championships diminish, because there's so many of them that everyone can just be champion here. So I do hope we get to Takeshita Okada. This clearly sets up Ospreay and Fletcher. Like, they're clearly like best friends, so it's something they probably want to do. But I think we'll get one match out of it, and then hopefully Ospreay can move away. I think they're doing this because they don't want Ospreay to be the world champion just yet. Like, I think that moment in time will be coming within, the next beginning of the next year. For sure, he's going to be slotted in, because Ospreay versus Mox, I think, is one of the big matches that they can go for eventually for a big pay-per-view. But for right now, he's got to face Fletcher. Storyline wise, it makes sense. I do want to see the match, but I just don't want to see months and months of the dragging this, story out. But at the same time, it's wrestling. So I'm like, all right, I'm for it. If the guy continues to use a screwdriver to hit someone in the head, I'm like, it's his signature thing. It's stupid, but I still really love the match itself. And yeah, the finish was hokey. And what was even weirder is the commentary. Okay, like watching, we know it's him because it's like they all come out and they're all there, but he's in the hood, right? It's like the commentary are waiting, and then I don't know who it is, but they're like, yeah, that's Kyle Fletcher. And then he's like slowly does the reveal. I'm like, that's who it is too. But awesome match, and I'm so happy.
The reveal's always weird when you're revealing right away and you're not doing it secretly. It's like, why are you disguising yourself? Just
we saw it on NXT, right, with Cora Jade. It's like, wait, why did you have to take the hood off? Also,
why did you have to be in disguise? Yeah,
really funny. But Takeshita versus Okada, if that's like the next big thing, like that's crazy. If we get Takeshita having defenses on TV, like that's awesome. Takesha's going to be with Don Callis at this Maple Leaf Wrestling event. Like, he'll have the title there. So I really feel like this is a great step forward for this guy, because again, he's just so exciting to watch. Like, one of the best wrestlers walking today. He's so much fun. So this was, again, I was a little iffy on this whole pay-per-view, but this match itself, I was like, whew, they were cooking something fierce with some of those crazy 3-way attacks and stuff. So I was hella entertained with this one.
We then had Swerve come out and make his decision whether he's joining MVP or not, and he's staying with Nana. No Lashley reveal or anything here. Kind of weird. It was just a way to get Swerve on the show in his near his hometown, but I was expecting to get something else out of this.
So clearly we're going to go to a Shelton versus Swerve match, but it's weird because if you knew you weren't going to have Lashley show up here, why wouldn't you just make this the first time we saw Shelton? Because Shelton, for me, he just showed up on TV in the back, right? Yeah. Like having him just show up here would have maybe make it felt a bit more
director of complaints or something like that. It was, it would have made this segment feel a bit more something. And
yeah, like,
but I think
cool,
the fact
shit,
we'd already revealed Shelton, I think a lot of people were expecting Lashley or someone else to be presented in this group.
Yeah, like, don't get it twisted. I do love me some AEW, but not even AEW can get me hyped to watch Bobby Lashley. So I wasn't necessarily on the edge of my seat, like, where's Bobby? Oh, he better show up. But at the end of it, I was like, oh, that was kind of weird that he didn't, because that segment was just like, hey, we're gonna fight eventually. But it was like, all right, cool. So I do imagine he is coming into AEW. It does make a lot of sense if he were to come in. And I do think they've announced Shelton versus Leo Rush on Dynamite, which could be pretty good. Like, seeing Shelton wrestle in AEW is something some people want to see. So I liked the promo that Swerve did, but it was also like, I don't know, did we need this on again, it felt like Collision, you know? It's like, do we need this on a pay-per-view?
Yeah, like, could have just given Swerve a match instead of the Jack Perry match, you know? Like,
could have been
if you want to get him in his hometown. We then had Hologram defeating the Beast Mortis in a 2 out of 3 falls match, winning 2-1 in 16 minutes 40 seconds in a really fun lucha match, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, again, this definitely felt like a Collision thing, but it's Beast Mortos, my number 2 to only Takeshita in 2024. But the Beast Mortos is just so exciting and so ridiculous that you watch this guy and you're like, this guy's a wrestler. You show this to any non-wrestling fan, they're like, what the hell is this guy? And then you watch him for 30 seconds and you're like, whoa, you're like locked in anytime this guy wrestles, because he's great. Hologram is silly, but I can get into it. This was pretty fun, but again, like, felt like a bit of a Collision match. There were some spots they were maybe a little too, like, they were thinking they could pull off. He kept trying to do a shoulder stand into the Poisonrana, and both times he had to just, like, in midair switch what he was doing because he couldn't do it. But
I still appreciate, though, it's still really impressive to, like, leap up on the shoulders, slip, and then still hit the move. Like, I really enjoyed this. And yes, this is something I think we even have seen it on Collision, but I don't mind this. I think, as I said, I think you need to make your B show a bigger deal, and therefore you should be having stories on that builds into the pay-per-view to make you think, man, I should be watching it. I don't think they've been doing a good job at that, but I do see this could have been the first time some people have really seen these guys wrestle. Like, so
yeah,
I think it is something that you go, oh wow, I want to check out more of them. I thought it was pretty fun.
It was definitely fun. I'm always in for some lucha, and again, Mortos is someone I'll always check out just because he's so good to watch. But it was very WCW cruiserweight vibes. Like, hey, we're gonna put on some lucha here just to spice things up. I just think that having it placed right after that other match, which was pretty, like, high paced, high action, was maybe not the best idea, because the crowd were kind of calming down and maybe weren't getting into it as much. But by the end of it, I think they really showed them support and love. But yeah, I was upset my guy lost, though, but it's okay.
Yeah. And then we had Darby Allin defeating Brody King, just to kind of, I don't know, a way to get Darby on the show. Like, we've seen this match a bunch, I think. Still thought it was fun, but I wasn't overly into this one.
Yeah, this one felt like a bit of a Dynamite match. They had some spots with the steps that was pretty nasty, where Brody was just, like, standing over the steps onto his body, and then the bump at the end where he falls back onto the steps as well. But it was pretty, like, standard with some of the stuff, and then sent the crowd home happy with Darby winning. It was kind of fine. It wasn't necessarily bad. It was just, again, felt like a match we've seen a bunch on TV, and Darby, I guess, getting his win over Brody. These guys are, like, I assume, best friends, like, if that, in real life with all this stuff. But it was still fine.
It was getting that win back over Brody and heating up Darby, who is clearly going to be in the title scene moving forwards. The Young Bucks defeating Private Party for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. I really enjoyed this match, and Private Party are definitely a team where I've been, like, hard on at times. I found them, like, you know, a bit dorky a lot of the time, and they've definitely been cooled off. Obviously, you had the Quen injury for quite a while, but then Zay doing stupid shit with the Hardy Boys. And this felt like kind of one of those matches to me that didn't feel earned with the build. Like, you literally had about 3 weeks ago Private Party just being absolutely fucking destroyed by Jon Moxley. And then they're in the world title picture. However, by the end of this match, I hope this is kind of part one in a way. And now it sort of, I got the same feeling. Remember Acclaimed versus Swerve and Keith Lee, the first match where the Acclaimed lost. And I think now it's how you follow up with these guys, because I think they turn some heads. They are some AEW originals. You can tell that story of them trying to like win the big one. But with a 2-week build, it's kind of like the Willow thing. It wouldn't have felt earned here. Now I think you've got to have them featured more. You've got to have them on TV more, putting on killer matches. They should probably have a gripe with Blackpool Combat Club and have a match against them down the line. And maybe these could be the two to eventually defeat the Young Bucks in a rematch. But I thought the match really got cooking, and I quite enjoyed it by the end.
Yeah, I think this is part two. If you want to go all the way back to where they kept the story is, they beat the Bucks on the second Dynamite, and then ever since they've never really evolved, and it's been 5 years, and they've still never done anything since. And that's kind of using that as story and everything. I think the match really got good with some back and forth, and I was almost let down that Private Party didn't win. So in a way, it did work of making me feel like they got to the Bucks level at this point. So I know. Obviously, the Bucks don't have their doubters and their critics, especially in the last year or so. But I thought they can still bring it when they choose to. Especially, I think back to the title defense on a Grand Slam a few weeks ago, and then this one. Like, I'm still like, okay, all right. Like, when you want to, you can tell us, you can show us that you're still good. And like, yeah, hearing you, like you've always hated Private Party, and like watching this, I was like, man, they're stepping up. Where was this? Like, maybe they needed Moxley to beat the shit out of them to, like, storyline wise, maybe that's where they go. Like, hey, every time we get knocked down is what eventually gets us there. So I do hope that we get Private Party as tag champs, because
the use of Amazing Red as well was great. And
but have that on TV, like have him wrestle with them, versus the Elite in a match or something, which hopefully we do see down the line. But yeah, I think this was pretty surprising, and hopefully this is in the right direction for Private Party, because even if they got you to like them.
Yeah, it's the follow-up. It's how you're going to follow up with this. And if this is one of those things where it's just, they've had this moment and then Tony Khan forgets about them again, it's a real shame, because now you should ride that momentum. And yeah, it doesn't have to be right away, but they can, the Bucks can be like, no, you've got to get back of the line now and rack up those wins before you get a shot against us again. Have it more of a long-term thing. If Private Party continue to put up matches like this, like, I don't want them coming to the ring humping the fucking ramp and that, it's like that stuff, the groaning, like all that shit puts me off them. But if they work more like this, I could get on board. And I think it is like, an AEW original team who still exist finally winning the big one would be a cool moment.
Yeah, I think it'll still come. I think this was good for them, though. Like, probably one of their best matches, if not their best match. So I really enjoyed this, and I guess Bucks winning prolongs this story, but good stuff.
Mark Briscoe defeated Chris Jericho using the J Driller in 15 minutes, 20 seconds for the ROH World Championship. I don't have too much to say about this one.
Yeah, Jericho, one of my all-time favorites, but in 2024, he doesn't need to be on a pay-per-view. I didn't necessarily actually hate this match. I thought the build was actually pretty decent with the promo off from a few weeks ago, but there was some cool stuff with Jericho hitting the J Drill and everything, but I couldn't necessarily be fussed. This was already like the like 10th or whatever match watching, or almost close to it. It just felt like, again, like, did we need this on a pay-per-view? It didn't feel like that. But as far it maybe it was better than I thought it was going to be, but still didn't need it.
Yeah. And then the main event, Jon Moxley defeating Bryan Danielson via TKO, I guess, submission
for
the AEW World Championship, and Danielson's full-time career is now over.
Yeah, so the whole thing with the bag over the head is not letting all the air in or out. But when Danielson got choked out here, all the air in the Tacoma Dome just disappeared, as I think everyone watching in a which maybe enough time hasn't passed yet to maybe make us appreciate how evil that was. But I think Moxley looking around while the crowd just went like dead silent. I don't want to compare it to like when the Undertaker's streak broke, but it got very quiet in this.
It was arena. Not going out with a bang, but a whimper, wasn't it?
It was like, oh, and then everyone's like, oh, what? And then Moxley looking around, and he was kind of laughing, like everyone's quiet and everyone's weird. And he was kind of like not sure how to react to that as well, which I thought was interesting. So again, maybe after some time we'll appreciate it or maybe shit on it even more. But I didn't think this match was bad by any means. I always felt like their matches against each other was always missing something. I still kind of felt that, but I thought the crowd were into it for Danielson. It's just weird because this can't be the last time we ever see this guy wrestle. In fact, we know this can't and it won't be the last time we see Bryan Danielson wrestle. I just don't know if this was the last time we've ever or will ever see him in AEW, which could be weird. He has made it clear that like, no, AEW is my home and this and that. And I just don't necessarily know if we ever do see him again in this company. It makes sense that he has this big revenge angle, especially after the fact with Wheeler Yuta, but I mean, which we all saw coming. I mean, that was, so I don't know.
I felt weird with this one. Unfortunately, I was spoiled. It was the one thing on the show that was spoiled for me. So that always takes me out of it, especially with a big stip when I'm going, okay, well, I know what's happening. So I'm not biting on near falls or anything like that. So that definitely like hindered this for me. I just, the stipulation of full-time career being over, I think for the last decade plus, we've had so many people on part-time schedules. Like Roman Reigns is your biggest star in WWE. He's been on part-time schedule for like 4 years now, it feels like. Yeah. So it's not a stipulation that really makes me care as much as a definitive, your career is now over. The match itself, I found, I don't know, I was feeling mixed about it because I thought, the Europe, almost the Anarchy in the Arena style beginning was fun to get the like crowd hyped, but I always think of that as more of a kind of comedy thing in Anarchy in the Arena and not necessarily this blood feud that's been going on. So I kind of felt weird with the beginning of the match. And yeah, because I was spoiled, I couldn't get into the near falls. It definitely ended with a whimper. And I'm just not excited about a Jon Moxley run. Like, I think this character's been good, his reinvention and all that, but I can't say of any of the three like runs he's had as champion, there's like a match I've ever been glowing about. Like, he's not a bad wrestler by any means, but he's not a wrestler that particularly connects with me in ring either. So I think in a time when, interest is down in AEW, like it isn't the hottest thing that it used to be, a fourth reign of Jon Moxley really doesn't excite me in the slightest, to be honest. The angle at the end, I did like the kind of somber tone, with Yuta taking him out, and you had the baby faces there, Darby, who's clearly going to be the big focus going forward, Jarrett, Orange, Private Party, all that. Like, I liked that for the end. I liked that kind of weird somber feel at the end of the pay-per-view, but I can't say I particularly got into the match or like the finish or really believe Danielson's not wrestling again or care for another Moxie run. So yeah, I felt flat at the end. And I think that was an intention. It was, they wanted us to feel flat. They wanted that feeling at the end, but
they're pushing
it's something I particularly enjoy.
Yeah, they're really pushing the like, hey, we don't even want to share the clip on social media because it was too evil, and everyone's acting as in somber mood. And Excalibur was crying at the end, like he was clearly crying loudly, bawling his eyes out. I don't know. I feel a few different ways. Like obviously, being spoiled affects watching a match. Like it affects because now you're just like, I know how this ends, and it does ruin watching a match. I totally feel for that, but I didn't necessarily think it was the most exciting match anyways to begin with. Again, every time they've wrestled, it's been good, but it's not been like, oh, that was the best thing I've ever seen on this show or this week or this year even. I do think though that people are still into Moxley. An issue they had with him in AEW when they tried to make him heel, it was like, well, he's one of the big draws that people actually still pay to come see. And when his theme is Wild Thing, people were still singing it. So they're really trying to make him get over as this like heel character. And I think that it is actually working considering that reaction that they got at the end here. I think having him take the title is, I don't want to say transitional, but like a good stepping stone because whoever the hot babyface to take it from him will like feel good because he's one of the big AEW stars. I do agree that in the last few years, like he's kind of just played it safe a little bit. And he's the weird one to play it safe because playing safe for Jon Moxley is still bleeding in every match and everything. But he's become like just kind of there. The guy is in incredible shape now, though. Like he did look significantly more jacked in this match. But I'm like, yeah, your title reigns before weren't necessarily the most exciting. Right now, this is like a fresh coat of paint with this character. He's basically saying, Danielson, I'm sorry, I had to do this to you. I have to be the one to end your career. It's a little like, I guess, poetic with them, but I guess we'll have to see where it plays out because it wasn't the most compelling story for sure. I kind of felt at the end of it like, oh, that was fine, but I wasn't anything that I'm buzzing about. And they're really pushing the sad, like, oh, Danielson's done. Well, is he done or is he going to return in the Royal Rumble or is he going to show up in a few months here in AEW to attack Moxley, go back to
I wonder if the whole they bring up the neck surgery and maybe that's why it felt rushed, didn't it? Like how we shuffled around the Grand Slam card, we got the Nigel match out the way. There is still, I think, which is sad, I think there's still matches I want to see with Danielson, and obviously this isn't the end of his full-time reign. I think once you get the title on Davie could be the one to draw Danielson back for a match. Yeah. You've got that story like, hey, we were meant to be doing our hometown in the main event and we got robbed of that match. And therefore, Danielson, I want you to come back, come out of your retirement, face me. I think that's something you could do down the line next year. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know at this point. If I think the way they ended it, I do see him sticking around in AEW. They have left the door open for those the feud with BCC moving forward and stuff.
Yeah, again, I'm like, the first time around, it wasn't that exciting. So moving away from BCC and that name, changing it up, I guess, is a smarter, fresher thing. But we'll see. Again, I think Moxley being the big bad heel is good for whoever is the one to take the title from. Like that'll elevate them significantly. Whether again, Ospreay Mox feels like something that I would like be pretty big for AEW and for.
I've seen it before. Like I don't give a shit about that. Yeah. Like there's no Moxley match you can excite me with, to be honest. Like
he's not the most exciting. Yeah, he's not the most exciting right now. And this is, I guess, them trying to like rehab that. But a lot of the other guys are the mid cards right now is where like the real juicy, compelling stuff. But again, like some people are more into this than some of the good wrestling matches that they don't care about the characters. Like to some people, Mox is still like a star to them, where they're like, hey, why am I caring about Takeshita or Hologram or whatever? So it does still like, I still think there's interest in Moxley from some people, but not necessarily like you said it. We've seen him face everybody. So it's only the new people that come in are the ones that we would be excited to see. I wasn't overly like impressed with this pay-per-view. I wouldn't say it was a bad pay-per-view because there was some really fantastic wrestling and then returns and stuff like that. But with the exception of like one really stellar match, it kind of felt like a glorified Collision or Dynamite to me. And I really hope in the next pay-per-view cycle for Full Gear, especially since we're going to be there, like I really hope they kick it into gear and kick it into gear. See what I did there? Really like bulk it up, because this felt like a special edition of Collision that like we were really hyping up. That like, yeah, it had some good stuff, but it wasn't anything that like a lot of the other stuff I'm going to forget about pretty quickly. And then the Danielson stuff is like, oh, that's kind of weird that's how he goes out, if that's how he's going out, like you're saying he's going out, but is he really? So I don't know, a weird kind of feeling after watching it.
Yeah, I thought really good, solid wrestling show, but suffered from lack of build and lack of interest. And I think that's the big issue AEW's had for a while now. So hopefully now we don't have many special TV episodes and we can just focus on a solid build to Full Gear and World's End to wrap up the year.
I mean, look, we've been to WrestleManias. I've been to some great indie shows. I've been to I've been to some I've been so like lucky as a wrestling fan. But Full Gear, I'm going to be able to witness live big AJ Justice from the Costco guys as he takes on QT Marshall on pay-per-view. I mean, wow, they're really doing it. They're really bringing the big guns out for the next pay-per-view. So I'm going to be buzzing. I'm going to be losing. I might be the only one actually cheering the Costco guys, but I'm excited. So looking forward to that.
Well, that's it. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And we will catch you all on the post-wrestling feed on Tuesday for a brand new episode of Up Next.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you on Tuesday. Follow Poisonrana as always. That's it. That's all. Take care. Goodbye and be safe.
Ahoy!
Poisonrana.